Title: They called her Luna the Witch, until the Mafia boss met her. They whispered her name in every corner of the city. Luna, the woman everyone feared, the one around whom misfortune always struck. Shops failed, accidents happened, and hearts broke, and people avoided her at all costs. No one dared cross her path until Damian appeared, calm, unshaken, his eyes sharp and unreadable. Welcome back, Moonlight dreamers, and if you're new, welcome to our channel where you don't find captivating stories, it finds you. If you love romantic tales that stir your heart and haunt your sleep, make sure to like, subscribe, and let the moon guide you home each night. Let's dive back into our story. The city never slept, but it whispered. In the narrow, rain-slicked streets, under flickering streetlights, people spoke in hushed tones, glancing over their shoulders. "There she goes," one muttered. "The witch." Luna walked with her head slightly bowed, her dark hair brushing the collar of her coat, footsteps careful yet measured. Nothing about her invited attention, and yet the world seemed to lean away from her, as if the air itself feared her presence. Rumors followed her like shadows. Shops she passed would close prematurely. Merchants whispered of lost shipments and strange accidents. Lovers who smiled at her soon quarreled. Friends turned distant, leaving her isolated at every turn. No one knew why. Some said she had cursed blood. Others that misfortune simply clung to her like a second skin. Luna had long since stopped asking questions. She'd learned the hard truth. The city did not forgive difference. Tonight the air was electric. Thunder rumbled far off, a storm brewing over the rooftops. Yet the streets were alive with the mundane, hurried footsteps, the clatter of carts, the distant hum of neon signs. Luna moved carefully, glancing around, sensing the familiar tension rise as she passed a busy corner. Children hushed in her wake. Dogs growled without reason. And yet, she carried on, a figure of quiet endurance, invisible yet profoundly marked. As she rounded a corner near the market square, a man carrying a stack of wooden crates hurried past her. His steps faltered. A loose cobblestone betrayed him, and suddenly, he slipped, crates tumbling, wood clattering loudly against the pavement. The crowd gasped, stepping back in alarm, but instead of offering help, their eyes turned to her dark, accusatory, filled with fear and blame. "They say misfortune follows her," whispered a woman clutching her coat. "She does it on purpose, I'm sure of it." Luna froze. Her hands tightened instinctively at her sides, heart hammering. She didn't touch him. She hadn't cursed him. And yet, all eyes were on her, their fear painting her as the culprit of a chaos she didn't cause. The man scrambled to his feet, embarrassed and flustered, muttering apologies, but it didn't matter. To the crowd, the story was already written. She was the witch. A cold wind swept through the square, sending paper and debris swirling around her ankles. Luna's breath caught as she realized how utterly alone she was. Yet she had always known this. Still, tonight felt different. Something in the air shifted, something that made the familiar dread deepen into anticipation. From the shadows across the street, a figure stepped forward, a man tall, composed, with eyes that didn't waver, that didn't recoil. Unlike everyone else, he didn't flinch, didn't whisper. For the first time in years, Luna felt a flicker of curiosity, and a strange, unfamiliar tingle of hope. The crowd's murmurs continued, sharp and accusing, but his gaze didn't join in. And as she looked up, their eyes met. Steady, intense, unreadable. Something was about to change. The man crossed the street, his steps deliberate. He reached her side and said simply, "I want to know you." Luna blinked, heart pounding. The city held its breath. The morning sun rose weakly over the city, but its warmth did little to touch Luna. Her apartment was small and quiet, a cocoon of solitude she had learned to depend on. Outside, the world moved with the careless bustle of life, people laughing, calling greetings, haggling with street vendors. Yet she felt invisible, unwelcome, and profoundly alone. Neighbors whispered behind curtains, turning every glance her way into suspicion. Former friends avoided her completely, their laughter echoing through memories she couldn't touch. She moved carefully through her narrow street, footsteps light, avoiding contact. A stray cat hissed as she passed. The old baker hurried inside, shaking his head. "She's cursed," someone muttered from a doorway. Luna didn't reply. She had long since stopped defending herself. Words had no power against fear, and fear, she knew, was stronger than reason. By noon, the market square was crowded with merchants and townsfolk. Luna kept to the shadows, glancing at the tables lined with vegetables, bread, and trinkets. The chatter of the crowd was punctuated by laughter and the clinking of coins. She kept her eyes forward, avoiding engagement, careful not to bring the inevitable chaos upon anyone. Then it happened. A street vendor carrying a heavy basket of fruits stumbled just steps from her. The basket toppled, fruits rolling in all directions. People gasped. The vendor cursed under his breath as he tried to gather the scattered produce. Luna froze, instinctively stepping back, unwilling to interfere. She had learned long ago that her presence seemed to make accidents worse. The crowd, of course, noticed her first. "Look, it's her again," a woman shouted, pointing an accusing finger. "She brings nothing but trouble wherever she goes." "Why is she even allowed out?" muttered a man, shaking his head. "It's dangerous, having her around." The vendor glared at Luna, confusion and panic flickering across his face. I don't know what happened," he stammered, but the murmurs and pointing eyes drowned out his protests. Luna's heart sank. She hadn't touched him, hadn't caused the mishap, yet everyone saw her as the source. Her solitude was punctuated by an aching frustration. Each step she took in public seemed to ripple chaos, confirming the stories, reinforcing the city's judgment. She felt the familiar pang of isolation tighten around her chest. For years she had tried to hide, to live quietly, to avoid drawing attention. And yet, even in careful silence, she was never safe from blame. That evening, she returned to her apartment, shoulders heavy, heart weary. She pressed her face against the cool glass of her window, watching the street below. The chaos of the day lingered in her mind, looping in endless repetition. And then, something unusual caught her eye. Across the street, partially in shadow, a man leaned casually against the corner of a building. His posture was relaxed, but his eyes were sharp, unwavering, and directed entirely at her. Unlike everyone else, he didn't flinch, he didn't whisper, he didn't look away. A spark of curiosity ignited deep within Luna, a sensation she hadn't felt in years, the strange pull of someone who saw her differently, someone who didn't fear her. The city's whispers faded from her ears, replaced by a single compelling thought. Who is he? As she stared, the man disappeared into the shadows, yet she could feel his gaze lingering, watching unafraid. Something was coming, and for the first time Luna felt like it might change everything. The evening sky draped the city in shades of deep violet and gold, painting long shadows across the cobblestone streets. Luna stayed near her apartment window, eyes fixed on the street below. The man from yesterday's observation, the one who had watched her without fear, had been nowhere in sight all morning. Her curiosity, a spark long buried beneath years of isolation and fear, refused to fade. A soft, deliberate knock echoed through her doorway. Luna's pulse quickened, a familiar tension curling in her chest. Hesitant, she opened the door. There he stood. Tall, confident, and impeccably dressed, Damian's presence radiated calm authority. His gaze, steady and intense, met hers without a hint of judgment or fear. "Good evening, Luna," he said, his voice low, smooth, and unmistakably deliberate. "I've been hoping to meet you." Luna froze. His composure unsettled her, not because of intimidation, but because for the first time in years, someone approached her without dread. Every encounter in her life had been laced with fear, suspicion, or judgment. Yet here he was, unflinching, unbothered by the rumors that clung to her like shadows. I don't know why you're here," Luna managed, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm here because I want to know you," Damian replied, stepping forward with measured grace. "I've seen how the city treats you. I've watched the way people fear what they don't understand. But I see differently." Luna instinctively glanced around the street. Normally, her presence attracted whispers, startled glances, and misfortune. Someone would trip, a cart would overturn, a vase would fall. But tonight nothing happened. Not a single mishap occurred as Damian walked past her threshold. For the first time, she realized misfortune didn't follow him. Her brow furrowed. You're not afraid of me?" Damian tilted his head, a small knowing smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "I don't fear what I don't understand. I'm more interested in discovering it." The air between them shifted, heavy with unspoken questions, curiosity, and an almost imperceptible tension. Luna felt the pull of something dangerous yet exhilarating. It was the first time she'd felt seen instead of blamed. Then, with a casual yet deliberate motion, Damian extended an invitation. "Come dine with me tonight, not out of pity, nor to entertain the city's stories, but because I believe there's more to you than they've ever imagined. Let me see it." Luna's heartbeat quickened. The city had always warned her, keep your distance, hide, avoid. And yet, here was a man defying every rule she had ever lived by, daring to step into her world unafraid. For a moment, the rain-slicked streets, the whispers, the fear, all of it, faded into insignificance. And for the first time, Luna wondered, could someone truly see her for who she was, without judgment, without fear? Damian's eyes held hers steadily, unwavering, as he added softly, "I see something in you, something they can't touch." Luna's pulse raced. Something was about to change. The morning air was crisp, tinged with the faint scent of rain from the night before. Luna walked briskly down the narrow streets, her coat pulled tightly around her, mind racing with skepticism. Damian's sudden appearance in her life had left her cautious, unsure. No one had ever approached her without fear, let alone insisted on seeing her again. She tried to ignore the memory of his steady, unwavering gaze, the calm authority in his voice. Why him, she wondered. Why does he act as if I'm normal? Her past experiences had taught her otherwise. Every step in the city had been a minefield of whispered warnings and small disasters. She had learned to keep her distance, to avoid drawing attention. Yet as she passed the bustling market square, she noticed him. Damian stood near a fruit cart, arms casually crossed, observing the crowd with a relaxed composure that seemed impossible in a city always on edge. Luna's instincts told her to retreat. Old habits die hard. But curiosity tugged at her feet, slowing her pace. Suddenly, a young boy darted between the carts, chasing a runaway dog. He tripped over a stray basket, sending fruits tumbling toward an elderly woman. The crowd gasped, bracing for chaos. They had learned to expect misfortune whenever Luna was nearby. But Damian moved with deliberate calm. In a few effortless steps, he caught the basket mid-fall, steadying the boy and saving the woman from being struck. No misfortune struck. The crowd blinked, stunned. For the first time, nothing went wrong. Nothing followed Luna. Luna froze, heart pounding. She had spent years believing she carried bad luck like a shadow. Yet here, with Damian, nothing had happened. He didn't flinch. He didn't stumble. He didn't curse her. He simply stopped the accident, unaffected and composed. Her skepticism wavered. Could it be possible that her curse wasn't absolute? Could someone truly exist who didn't fear or avoid her, who wasn't affected by the misfortune everyone else seemed to believe she carried? Damian turned toward her then, his eyes locking onto hers with that same steady intensity. A small, knowing smile curved his lips. "See?" he said, as if reading her thoughts. "Nothing has to go wrong. Not always. Luna's chest tightened. Something stirred inside her, a tiny flicker of hope, fragile but insistent. She had spent her life alone, blamed and feared. And yet now, she felt it. The possibility of normalcy, even connection. The streets remained alive with cautious whispers, but Luna barely noticed. For the first time, the shadow of her old fear seemed to lift, if only slightly. As Damian gestured for her to come closer, Luna hesitated, eyes wide. Could she trust this calm man? The only one who hadn't feared her? Could he really see the real her? And if she stepped forward, would everything she had believed about herself finally begin to change? The sun was dipping toward the horizon, casting the city in a soft amber glow. Luna lingered near the edge of the fountain in the square, the air buzzing with the usual murmurs about her. A few merchants exchanged wary glances. Children hesitated to pass, and even the pigeons seemed to scatter more than usual when she walked by. She wrapped her coat tighter around herself, bracing for the weight of judgment that always followed her. Then Damian appeared, as if summoned by her thoughts. Calm, confident, and unbothered by the city's whispering gaze, he approached her with a small smile. "You don't have to move through the world like a shadow," he said gently. "Not here. Not with me." Luna's lips pressed together, a reflexive shield against hope. "People, they won't let me," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the city's ambient hum. "They think I bring misfortune." Damian's gaze softened, steady as ever. "Let them think what they want. I only care about what I see." For the first time in years, Luna felt a weight lift, and before she realized it, she laughed. It was light, tentative, fragile, but genuine. The sound surprised her more than anyone. She hadn't realized how long it had been since she had felt that ease, that momentary freedom from the city's relentless scrutiny. Damian chuckled softly, a warm sound that made her chest flutter. As they began walking, the streets around them continued their usual rhythm. A woman nearby stumbled over a loose stone, dropping her basket of apples. Normally, such small accidents would immediately be whispered back to Luna's curse, her presence blamed. But Damian's steady stride beside her seemed to calm the air. The woman recovered quickly, unhurt, and looked bewildered rather than accusatory. Meanwhile, a group of local teens, emboldened by curiosity and mockery, began whispering loudly about the witch and attempting to startle her. Yet one by one, minor mishaps befell them, tripping over unseen stones, bumping into carts, spilling their own drinks, small but telling reminders of the city's old fears. Luna's heart clenched as she watched, a mix of shame and awe stirring inside her. Then she glanced at Damian. He walked beside her, unconcerned, unaffected, as if the chaos surrounding her no longer touched them. Nothing went wrong. No slips, no falls, no whispered condemnations. For the first time, Luna realized the truth. With him, the world didn't seem to collapse around her. Her chest tightened with a strange, fragile hope. Could it be possible that she was only ever truly cursed when surrounded by fear and doubt? That her misfortune was more a mirror of others' judgments than her own doing? Luna stopped mid-step, eyes wide, staring at Damian. Nothing bad happens when he's near, nothing at all. Her lips parted, barely a whisper. "Is it you?" The thought lingered in the fading light, fragile but electrifying, the possibility that her life could change entirely. The evening air was cool, carrying the faint scent of jasmine from a nearby garden. Luna and Damian walked slowly through the quieter streets, the usual city murmur fading into a gentle rhythm that felt almost surreal. The world had always been heavy on her, a place where every step could bring whispers, blame, and misfortune. Yet tonight, beside Damian, the weight felt lighter, almost bearable. She hesitated before speaking, words caught in the cage of years of isolation. You don't understand," she began, voice trembling. "People blame me for everything. A shopkeeper loses his goods, a child falls, a friend's life falls apart, and somehow it's always my fault. I've tried to live quietly, but the city won't let me. They whisper. They point. They fear me. Damian's eyes softened, steady and unwavering. He stopped walking and turned to face her fully, giving her the rare luxury of being seen without judgment. I understand more than you think, he said. I've faced fear too. People have whispered about me, doubted me, judged me before they even knew me. It's exhausting, but it teaches you something. Fear is more dangerous than misfortune. Luna blinked, taken aback. No one had ever said anything like that to her. Her past was always met with suspicion or ridicule. Even sympathy carried an undercurrent of fear. Damian's words felt like sunlight cutting through storm clouds, fragile yet powerful. She dared a small, tentative smile, the first time she had felt her chest unclench in years. They continued down the street, and Luna began to notice small details she usually ignored. The laughter of children playing in a distant courtyard, the warm glow of lanterns, the scent of fresh bread from a corner bakery. For a fleeting moment, the city felt ordinary, safe even. Then it happened. A passerby, a woman carrying a bundle of cloth, suddenly collapsed near them. Panic rippled through the small crowd immediately. Normally, Luna would have recoiled, heart pounding, expecting blame, whispers, and another proof of her supposed curse. She froze, unsure what to do, guilt rising like a tide. But Damian stepped forward, calm, authoritative. He placed a hand lightly on the woman's shoulder, his voice steady as he guided her to sit. Moments later, she drew in a deep, steadying breath, her color returning. Confusion and relief rippled through the onlookers. No one blamed Luna. In fact, the subtle energy Damian exuded seemed to buffer her from the chaos entirely. Luna stared, her chest tightening with a mix of wonder and disbelief. For the first time, she saw that misfortune wasn't absolute. Maybe, just maybe, it was only real when others' fear touched her, and Damian's presence, unwavering and confident, shielded her from it. As the woman thanked Damian and moved on, Luna's eyes met his once again. The question forming on her lips trembled in the air. Could he truly be the one who changes everything? And in that fleeting gaze, she realized something dangerous: hope. The city seemed quieter tonight, yet for Luna, every step was a reminder of years spent in caution and isolation. She had grown accustomed to avoiding attention, to moving like a shadow through streets that never welcomed her. But tonight was different. Beside her, Damian walked with that same composed confidence that had begun to feel like an anchor in the storm of whispers and fear. As they strolled past the familiar alleyways and glowing lanterns, Luna's mind wandered. The world hadn't changed. The same city, the same streets, the same people. Yet something felt different. The misfortune that had always clung to her, that had isolated her for so long, seemed less absolute. She realized with a start that it wasn't she who brought the calamities. It was the fear and judgment around her, the whispers, the panic, the avoidance. That was what made the world feel dangerous. Damian's presence acted like a shield. With him near, the streets felt lighter, the air less charged. He noticed her introspection and offered a small smile. "Would you like to see the world differently?" he asked, his voice calm, confident, and strangely reassuring. Before Luna could respond, he gestured toward a grand building at the edge of the square. Warm light spilled from its windows, and soft laughter drifted into the streets. "I'm hosting a small gathering tonight," Damian said. "No judgments, no whispers, just people. I want you to see that the world isn't as dangerous as it seems." Luna hesitated, old fears rising like shadows at the edges of her mind. I don't know if I can," she admitted. "They'll notice me. Something will happen. It always does." Damian's gaze softened. "Not tonight. Not with me. Trust me." Reluctantly, she followed him inside. The room was filled with the city's elite, but they paused only briefly, curiosity flickering in their eyes before turning to other matters. No one flinched. No mishaps occurred. No whispers escalated into fear. Luna moved through the room accompanied by Damian, and for the first time in her life, she felt ordinary. Her lips curved into a small, tentative smile. Laughter bubbled up naturally as Damian engaged her in conversation, guiding her through introductions. For the first time, she realized the world could witness her without calamity following. Yet in the corner of the room, a sharp-eyed woman narrowed her gaze. Her lips curled into a thin smile, calculating, dangerous. She had watched Luna's so-called curse for years, and now seeing the woman move through the crowd unscathed, her mind raced with suspicion. As Luna laughed quietly at something Damian whispered, the woman's whispered words cut through the murmur of the party. "We'll see if the curse is truly gone or if it's just waiting to strike." The tension in the air hinted that Luna's fragile peace might soon be challenged. The morning sunlight spilled into the streets in sharp, golden beams, casting long shadows that reminded Luna of the countless eyes always watching her. Today felt heavier somehow, charged with anticipation. Damian walked beside her, his calm confidence a steadying presence in a city that had always seemed poised to strike at her misfortune. As they approached the central plaza, Luna noticed the subtle glances of merchants and passers-by. Some whispered, some exchanged pointed looks, and a few even tried to trip over obstacles near her path. Her chest tightened. Old habits urged her to shrink, to retreat, to vanish into the shadows. Yet Damian remained calm beside her, unbothered by the orchestrated chaos. A man carrying a tray of glasses deliberately stumbled near her. People gasped, expecting the familiar disaster that always followed Luna. But Damian's presence seemed to shift the air itself. With a few effortless steps, he steadied the tray, guiding the man's hand and averting any spill. Nothing went wrong. Not a drop fell. Not a shout was raised. Luna's eyes widened in disbelief. She had spent years thinking her mere existence invited calamity, yet here, standing next to him, she realized something extraordinary. It wasn't her. It was their fear, their expectation of disaster. Damian noticed her astonishment and leaned slightly closer. "You see it now, don't you?" he said, his voice low and confident. "The danger isn't in you. It's in how people react to you. Their fear gives them power. You don't need to control them, only yourself." Luna's brow furrowed. "But what if they never stop judging me? What if it's always like this?" "That's why you don't fight them," Damian replied, his eyes steady and unwavering. "You move through the world with clarity, confidence, awareness. Misfortune has no hold over those who refuse to fear it." They continued through the bustling streets, and gradually Luna began to mimic his calm, deliberate movements. Each step felt lighter, less burdened by the city's whispers. The more she followed his guidance, the more she realized that while she could not prevent others' judgments or whispers, she could control how she responded. That alone made her feel stronger, less like a shadow condemned to bring misfortune. Yet even as hope stirred, the city remained unpredictable. A young boy tripped near them, knocking over a cart. Normally, Luna would have felt the panic coil in her chest, guilt rising like a tide. But Damian's hand on her shoulder grounded her, and together they guided the boy and the cart safely. No mishap, no blame, no chaos. Luna looked up at Damian, awe mingling with unease. "So, if I can't control how they see me, then what happens when someone deliberately tries to make me fail?" A shadow passed across her thoughts, a warning that her journey toward acceptance and control would not be without challenges. The city streets shimmered in the late afternoon sun, golden light reflecting off puddles from an earlier rain. Luna walked beside Damian, her steps unhurried, heart lighter than it had felt in years. The whispers, the fear, the judgment that usually followed her seemed muted in his presence, replaced instead with a rare and fragile sense of freedom. They wandered through narrow lanes lined with cafes and small shops, the air filled with the scent of fresh bread and brewing coffee. Damian's easy conversation and teasing remarks coaxed laughter from her. Soft, genuine laughter, unforced, something she hadn't heard from herself in years. She felt weightless, like she was no longer being dragged along by the heavy chains of the city's suspicion. They paused at a small fountain, its water sparkling under the sunlight. Luna watched children play nearby, marveling at their carefree movements. I forgot what it felt like to just walk without expecting disaster, she admitted, glancing at Damian with a tentative smile. Disaster isn't inevitable, he said, eyes calm and sure. Fear makes it real. Don't let them make it yours. For a moment it felt true. The city could whisper, the people could stare. And still, here she was, walking, laughing, living, and nothing went wrong. She allowed herself to believe she could be ordinary, even happy. But happiness, Luna knew, was fragile. A familiar figure appeared nearby, a friend she had trusted for years, someone she had confided in before isolation took hold. The friend tripped on a loose cobblestone, sending a stack of books tumbling to the ground. Luna's chest tightened, her heart hammering in panic. The instinctive guilt, the fear that she had caused it, rose like a shadow she could not dispel. Damian moved with his usual calm precision, helping the friend up and rearranging the scattered books. No one was hurt. The accident was minor. But the fear had returned, creeping into Luna's mind like an unwelcome whisper. For the first time in the afternoon, she realized that even in joy, she could not escape the weight of her past. Her laughter faltered, replaced by a quiet unease. The streets seemed to hold their breath, the city watching, waiting, judging. Luna's thoughts churned. Perhaps the curse was not in her at all. Perhaps it was the fear, the judgment, the whispered suspicions of everyone around her that created the chaos she had always been blamed for. Luna glanced at Damian, her eyes wide, torn between hope and doubt. Am I truly cursed? Or is it society's fear that makes the world believe I am? The question lingered, heavy and unresolved, leaving the promise of happiness hanging on the fragile edge of possibility. The morning sunlight filtered through the large windows of the cozy cafe, illuminating the polished wood tables and the faint scent of freshly baked pastries. Luna entered cautiously, clutching her coat tightly, anticipating the familiar weight of whispered fears and sidelong glances. But today she wasn't alone. Damian's presence beside her radiated calm authority, an invisible shield against the city's usual judgment. They settled at a small table near the window, Damian's gaze casually scanning the cafe as if assessing the room. Luna took a deep breath, trying to let the rare sensation of normalcy wash over her. For the first time, she allowed herself a tentative smile, a small acknowledgement that life could be lighter, even in the face of scrutiny. Then it happened. A waiter tripped over a chair, spilling a tray of coffee onto the floor. Gasps and murmurs erupted instantly, eyes turning toward Luna, as though expecting the usual pattern of misfortune. The panic that normally clawed at her chest began to rise. She felt the old familiar dread pressing in, ready to choke hope before it could grow. But Damian moved smoothly, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. His calm, composed energy radiated outward, and the panic in the room seemed to soften. He knelt to help the waiter, steadying the tray and reassuring the staff with quiet words. The spill was minor. No one was hurt. And remarkably, no blame fell on Luna. See? Damian said softly, his gaze meeting hers. Nothing has to go wrong. Not with calm, not with awareness, and certainly not because of you. The murmurs shifted subtly among the onlookers. A few patrons exchanged doubtful glances, questioning the stories they had long believed. Could it be that Luna wasn't cursed? Could it be that the chaos attributed to her was born from fear and judgment, rather than some supernatural misfortune? For the first time, Luna felt the faint stirrings of hope. The city might not fully understand her, but maybe it could learn. Maybe she could exist in it without being condemned at every turn. Yet even in this small victory, shadows lingered. Memories of past accidents, of whispered warnings, of isolation crept into her thoughts. The fear wasn't gone. It had only been tempered, held at bay by Damian's steady presence. As Luna watched the cafe return to normal, her fingers gripping the edge of the table, she realized something both exhilarating and terrifying. For the first time, I can see a path toward acceptance, but can I truly escape the echoes of the past? Her gaze met Damian's, steady and reassuring, yet the city beyond the windows still whispered. And somewhere, doubt was waiting to strike again. The evening air was cool, carrying the faint aroma of rain on cobblestones. Luna and Damian had retreated from the bustling city streets to a quiet rooftop garden, a hidden sanctuary of greenery and soft lantern light. The distant hum of the city felt far away, almost unreal, replaced by the gentle rustle of leaves and the faint trickle of a fountain nearby. For the first time, Luna allowed herself to relax completely. No whispers, no judgment, no fear, only Damian beside her, calm, patient, and unwavering. They sat close on a weathered bench, talking quietly about everything and nothing. Luna laughed more freely than she had in years, and for a fleeting moment, the weight of the city's fear lifted entirely from her shoulders. "I never thought anyone could just see me," Luna admitted, her voice soft, almost a whisper, as she traced the rim of her mug absent-mindedly. "Not the gossip, not the fear, just me." Damian's gaze met hers, steady and reassuring. "I see you, Luna, all of you, and I'm not afraid." A warmth spread through her chest, a fragile glow of trust and connection. She felt a bond forming, stronger than the city's fear, deeper than the whispers that had chased her for so long. It was a moment of quiet intimacy, of understanding without words. But the fragile peace shattered suddenly. A figure emerged from the shadows near the entrance to the rooftop, a woman Luna recognized immediately. Someone from her past, someone whose memory carried years of blame and resentment. "You," the woman spat, eyes blazing. "Do you even remember what you did that night? My shop is ruined. My life almost destroyed." Luna froze, heart hammering, panic creeping back. She opened her mouth to explain, to defend herself, but the words stuck in her throat. The memories of that night, the small accident that had spiraled out of control, rose unbidden, and for a terrifying moment, she felt the old weight of guilt pressing down. Damian stood slowly, stepping between Luna and the accuser. His presence was commanding, a steadying force that cut through the tension like sunlight through storm clouds. "She had nothing to do with it," he said firmly, voice low and unwavering. "I believe in her innocence. Do not speak another word." The accuser faltered, her anger dimming slightly in the face of Damian's authority, and eventually she turned away, muttering under her breath as she disappeared into the shadows. Luna's knees weakened, and she sank onto the bench beside him, trembling but relieved. Damian reached out, placing a comforting hand over hers. "Cliffhanger. I believe in you," he whispered, his steady gaze anchoring her trembling heart. And in that single sentence, Luna felt a new strength bloom. Yet she knew the city outside still waited, ready to challenge her at every turn. Could she truly step into the world without fear, now that trust had begun to take root? The streets of the city buzzed with renewed whispers, subtle at first, then swelling into a tide of suspicion. Luna walked alongside Damian, careful to stay near him, yet the tension in the air prickled at her skin. The city had never truly forgiven her for her supposed curse, and now, fueled by envy and fear, rumors began to spread once more. "She's dangerous, nothing good comes near her," a merchant muttered, watching Luna's cautious steps. Children were kept close, neighbors turned away, and a few bold onlookers made sly gestures hoping to provoke some sign of misfortune. Luna's chest tightened. Old habits of shrinking and fear threatened to pull her under. Then it began. Minor accidents, subtle and calculated, unfolded around her. A cart tipped slightly, spilling grain. A man tripped over a cobblestone. A lantern wobbled precariously. Eyes turned immediately to Luna, anticipation heavy with blame. She froze, panic gnawing at her mind, the familiar sensation of dread rising like a tide. But Damian remained composed, his presence steady and unwavering. As he walked beside her, guiding her with a gentle hand and calm assurance, none of the incidents affected them. The accidents only touched those around her who feared, who doubted, who expected misfortune. The contrast was striking. Where confidence and calm existed, misfortune could not take root. Luna's eyes widened in realization. Each minor mishap, each whispering onlooker, became a mirror of fear, not a reflection of herself. The curse she had carried like a shackle for years began to reveal its true nature. It was not an innate misfortune, but a reflection of the world's perception of her. Her heartbeat steadied. For the first time she felt not the crushing weight of blame, but the thrill of understanding, the power to navigate the city with awareness, with calm and perhaps even defiance. Cliffhanger. As she glanced at Damian, a mixture of awe and determination rising in her chest, she whispered to herself, "So, it isn't me. It's them." Yet even as understanding dawned, the city's shadows loomed, and somewhere, someone plotting to test the fragile truth of her newfound clarity waited. Luna knew the real challenge was only beginning. The evening air was warm and filled with the subtle hum of conversation. Lanterns glowed along the streets, casting dancing shadows that mirrored the uncertainty in Luna's heart. Tonight was different. Tonight she would step out into the world without retreating, without hiding. Beside her, Damian walked with effortless confidence, his presence a shield against both whispers and stares. The venue was a small but elegant hall, filled with city folk who had long spoken of her in hushed tones. Rumors had followed her everywhere, a cloud she had carried for years, isolating herself from all. Now, walking and unflinching, she felt the weight of their eyes, the subtle judgment pressing at the edges of her consciousness. But Damian's steady hand and calm gaze reminded her. Fear had no power if she refused to give it any. As she entered, a waiter tripped slightly, and a glass clinked precariously against the edge of a table. Gasps rose automatically, eyes darting toward Luna, expecting disaster. But nothing fell. Nothing broke. Damian's calm composure seemed to anchor the room itself. The minor mishap passed harmlessly, and the city folk began to murmur, curiosity replacing automatic fear. Luna moved through the gathering, each step more confident than the last. Smiles came more easily now, some tentative, some genuine. She laughed lightly at Damian's teasing remarks, a sound that turned heads not with fear, but with intrigue. Slowly the room began to see her not as a harbinger of misfortune, but as a person, someone capable of grace, poise, and even joy. Yet the fragile peace was punctured by a single whisper from a shadowed corner. "The curse, it's not gone. Be careful." The words sent a shiver down Luna's spine. For a moment, she faltered, her newfound confidence threatened by old fears. But Damian's steady hand on her back and the calm assurance in his eyes reminded her of the truth she had begun to understand. The curse was only real if others' fear gave it life. Luna met Damian's gaze, heart pounding, and thought, "So the city will try. But maybe it's me who decides what's real." Yet even as determination rose, a lingering tension remained. Someone, somewhere, still sought to test her, to unravel the fragile perception of control she had fought so hard to claim. The twilight sky painted the city in deep purples and golds, the soft glow of lanterns reflecting in puddles left from the afternoon rain. Luna and Damian walked along the quiet streets, their hands brushing occasionally, sending small sparks of warmth through Luna's chest. The closeness was new, exhilarating, yet frightening. Years of isolation had taught her that connection always brought danger. that intimacy inevitably invited misfortune. Damian noticed her hesitation and smiled gently, his voice soft as a whisper. "You don't have to be afraid," he said. "I'm here. Nothing bad has to happen." Luna swallowed hard, her heart hammering. Every fiber of her being urged caution, reminded her of past disasters and whispered warnings. Yet, as she looked into Damian's steady eyes, she felt something unfamiliar. Safety. For the first time, closeness didn't trigger chaos. No accidents, no whispers, no fear. Just the two of them, existing in a fragile bubble of trust and warmth. They found a secluded bench near a fountain, its waters catching the moonlight and scattering it like tiny stars. Sitting side by side, their fingers intertwined naturally. Luna laughed softly at something Damian said, a sound rich with genuine joy. The city and its judgments felt miles away, irrelevant for this fleeting moment of peace. But the calm was fragile. A figure lingered near the edge of the plaza, an outsider, unfamiliar yet deliberate in their gaze. Whispers followed their movements, subtle but calculated, designed to unsettle and provoke the old fears. Luna's pulse quickened as she realized the person was trying to manipulate perception, to remind the city, and perhaps her, that the curse was still alive. Damian's hand tightened gently around hers, grounding her. "Focus on what's real," he murmured. "Not what they want you to see." Her chest heaved, hope and fear battling for dominance. She had come so far, learned to navigate the world with calm and trust. Yet the arrival of this outsider reminded her how delicate her progress truly was. As the shadowy figure whispered rumors into the ears of passers-by, Luna's gaze met Damian's, determination sparking in her eyes. "We won't let them control the story anymore." But even as resolve flared, she knew the real test of her newfound courage was about to begin. The city square was alive with activity, yet a strange tension lingered in the air. Luna walked beside Damian, her posture more confident than ever. For the first time, she felt the curious gazes of the townspeople less like daggers and more like cautious interest. The outsider who had tried to manipulate perception had been seen whispering and provoking, but instead of fueling fear, their efforts had begun to unravel in unexpected ways. Small groups of people approached Luna openly. A merchant she had once avoided smiled and offered a basket of fruit. Children waved tentatively instead of running away. Whispers of her supposed curse began to shift into murmurs of curiosity, some even defending her, questioning the old stories they had all taken for granted. Luna's chest tightened, a mix of relief and disbelief flooding her senses. Damian walked beside her, calm as ever, eyes sweeping the square with that quiet confidence that seemed to anchor the chaos. "See what happens when fear doesn't rule the day?" he asked softly. "They're starting to notice the truth. Misfortune isn't about you. It's about their fear." Luna nodded slowly, a fragile smile spreading across her face. Each interaction felt like a victory, each small act of acceptance a reminder that the world could be different. For the first time in her life, she felt hope blossoming, real and tangible, like sunlight breaking through a long, stormy night. Yet even as the city began to see her in a new light, shadows lingered at the edges. The outsider's schemes, though backfiring, had stirred something darker: envy, fear, and old grudges waiting for an opportunity. Luna's newfound hope felt precious, almost dangerously fragile. Standing beside Damian, watching people slowly accept her, Luna felt a rare spark of optimism. Yet deep in the city's unseen corners, a silent threat moved unnoticed. The whispers that had haunted her for years were fading, but the storm they once carried had not fully passed, and tragedy, lurking beyond the light, was waiting. The streets glowed under the pale light of lanterns, shadows stretching long and threatening along the cobblestones. Luna walked beside Damian, her steps measured but calm. The city seemed quieter than usual, yet the undercurrent of envy and suspicion remained, hidden but palpable. A figure emerged from the shadows, a woman whose eyes glimmered with resentment. She had watched Luna's growing acceptance with increasing bitterness, refusing to believe the curse could fade. Tonight she intended to provoke, to remind the city that misfortune was never far from Luna's path. The woman dropped a crate of glass jars near Luna, expecting the usual panic, the automatic blame, the whispers. Glass shattered on the cobblestones, a few jars rolling dangerously toward the crowd. Gasps erupted, eyes darting toward Luna, anticipation thick in the air. Luna froze for only a heartbeat. Then Damian stepped closer, his calm presence radiating like a shield. Together they moved seamlessly, Luna guiding the jars with gentle hands, Damian intercepting them with precise timing. No one was hurt, no one blamed her, and the envious figure's plan unraveled in the simplest, most effective way. For the first time, Luna noticed something remarkable. The chaos that had always followed her wasn't inherent to her. It only thrived when fear or envy touched it. With Damian by her side, even the darkest intentions failed to manifest. The realization settled in her chest like a warm flame. She had never felt truly safe before, not until now. Her heart swelled with a fragile mix of gratitude and wonder. The world could still be chaotic, the city still suspicious, but here, beside Damian, she could breathe, she could act, and she could exist without fear. Luna glanced at Damian, a newfound determination in her eyes. I've never felt this safe. But how long will it last? In the shadows, the envious figure retreated, plotting her next move, a silent reminder that the city's acceptance was still fragile, and that danger, though muted, still lurked unseen. The afternoon sunlight poured into the city square, warm and golden, but Luna felt none of its usual comfort. Her mind was on edge, each step measured, each glance alert. The street seemed ordinary, yet the faint tension she had learned to read in the crowd was there, subtle but insistent. Suddenly a cry pierced the air. Luna's heart jolted. She saw a young friend she had grown close to stumble dangerously near a set of construction scaffolding. A heavy beam tilted, threatening to fall. Gasps erupted from the crowd and panic rippled like a wave toward her. Old instincts screamed at Luna to freeze, to shrink, to retreat, the reflex that had kept her isolated for so long. But Damian's hand on her shoulder steadied her, his calm gaze anchoring her frantic heart. "Focus," he whispered. "You can act. Don't let fear control you." With trembling hands, Luna stepped forward. She carefully guided her friend away from the danger, signaling others to assist and moving with deliberate precision. Every step felt like a battle against years of ingrained panic and guilt. The crowd watched, frozen between fear and fascination. The beam wobbled dangerously but didn't fall. The young friend stumbled to safety unharmed. Relief flooded Luna, accompanied by a surge of exhilaration. She had faced the fear that had dominated her life for years and emerged unscathed. Damian's hand remained on hers, his eyes warm, encouraging, proud. For the first time, Luna felt the strength that came not from absence of danger, but from confronting it. She realized that misfortune only gained power when fear allowed it. By facing it head-on, she could act with clarity, compassion, and courage. As the crowd murmured in awe, Luna's gaze met Damian's. Her chest tightened with newfound resolve, yet the shadow of doubt lingered. If I can face this, what will happen when the city tests me again? Somewhere beyond the cheering, unseen forces began to stir, reminding her that peace was never permanent. The city streets were bathed in warm sunlight, bustling with life. Luna walked with her head held high, laughter spilling naturally from her lips as she moved beside Damian. Gone were the days of shrinking shadows and fearful glances. Today she existed in the world openly, fully trusting that nothing would harm her as long as she remained grounded in calm and confidence. People no longer avoided her. Some smiled warmly, even greeting her directly. A few stopped to thank her for past acts of kindness, whispering about her compassion and wisdom instead of her supposed curse. Luna's chest swelled with an unfamiliar pride. The city was beginning to see her as she truly was. Damian, always calm and composed, stayed at her side, guiding her presence through each interaction. His steady influence allowed her to navigate the subtle tensions of public life effortlessly, and together, they radiated a sense of quiet authority that seemed to soften even the most skeptical hearts. Yet just as she began to feel secure, a commotion arose in a nearby alley. A fire had broken out in a small building, and the chaos quickly drew a crowd. Instinctively, gasps and whispers surged. Old fears resurfaced in the faces of onlookers who froze as they searched for someone to blame. Luna's first instinct was to hesitate, the shadow of old panic brushing against her mind. Damian's hand on her shoulder brought her back. "This is real. Focus on what you can do, not what they fear," he reminded her. Together, they helped guide people to safety, assisting firefighters and calming those around them. Luna's heart raced, but she felt something she had never truly experienced, a sense of agency. Her presence was no longer a source of panic, it was a source of calm. She saw the shift in the crowd, and it thrilled her to realize the world could recognize her courage and humanity. As the fire was brought under control, Luna glanced at Damian, relief flooding her chest. Yet a tremor of unease remained. The city's whispers, though muted, were never far away. Peace is possible, but for how long? Somewhere, beyond the glow of the street lamps and the cheering crowd, fate was preparing to strike. The city shimmered under a late afternoon sun, its streets alive with activity and laughter. Luna walked confidently beside Damian, her hand in his, feeling a rare sense of peace. For weeks, she had moved through the city without fear, the whispers of her past fading into distant shadows. She had grown stronger, bolder, and more resilient. Yet fate, unpredictable and indifferent, had its own plans. A sudden crash echoed through the marketplace. A carriage wheel broke loose, rolling toward the crowded street. Panic erupted instantly. Damian, ever alert, began to act, but the path of the wheel diverted, heading toward him. Luna's heart seized. Years of instinct screamed at her to flee, to hide, to let disaster happen. But she couldn't. Not him. In a split second, she lunged forward, pushing Damian out of harm's way. The wheel smashed harmlessly into the side of a building, leaving him safe, but the impact ricocheted toward a nearby crowd. A vendor, unaware, was struck and chaos erupted. Luna's chest tightened with guilt, adrenaline, and fear. Damian turned, eyes wide with shock, as Luna steadied herself against the tremor of the incident. "You saved me," he said, voice trembling slightly. "But, are you okay?" Luna's hands shook, but her resolve was clear. "I had to," she whispered, voice tight with emotion. "I couldn't let you." But fate was unyielding. The city's misfortune, once only a reflection of fear, had found another target. The accident's ripple left devastation behind, and Luna realized with horror that even her courage and Damian's protection could not fully shield the world from unpredictability. Damian's hand reached for hers, and for a heartbeat, everything felt suspended. But in the distance, sirens wailed, the city's shadows thickened, and Luna understood the painful truth. Saving one life had come at a devastating cost elsewhere. Misfortune may not be hers, but it is never far. The calm they had fought so hard to create teetered on the brink, and the fatal consequences of her choice were about to unfold. The sky hung heavy with clouds, muted sunlight breaking through in fractured rays over the city that had both feared and whispered about Luna for so long. The streets were eerily quiet, as if the world itself sensed the weight of what had occurred. Luna stood at the edge of the central plaza, her eyes fixed on the place where the accident had claimed so much, and yet had also changed everything. The memory of Damian's presence burned bright in her mind. His calm assurance, his steady hand, his unwavering gaze that had anchored her through years of fear. She had chosen to protect him, her trust absolute, her courage unwavering. And in that act, he had given everything to keep her safe. But now, the cost was clear. Damian lay still, having shielded her from the final blow of misfortune that had come like a merciless tide. The crowd gathered slowly, murmuring in disbelief and sorrow. Some looked at Luna with newfound respect, awe, and even gratitude. They had witnessed her bravery, her compassion, and her ability to face fear head-on. The whispers that once condemned her had transformed into reverent tones. Stories told of the woman who changed the way the city saw courage and misfortune. Yet amid acceptance, grief gnawed at her. Luna's eyes filled with tears, not just for Damian, but for all the lives touched by fear, misunderstanding, and fate. She realized that the so-called curse had never been hers. It was the reflection of human judgment, amplified and misdirected. Damian had shown her that strength wasn't the absence of danger, but the courage to face it, to love in spite of it. Alone now, yet profoundly changed, Luna felt a deep, resonant peace. She had survived. She had loved. She had reshaped the city's perception, leaving a legacy of courage, compassion, and transformation. The city would remember both the curse and the heroism, the loss and the love, the fear and the hope. Luna gazed at the horizon, wind brushing through her hair. The city's murmurs softened into a quiet reverence, and a single tear traced her cheek. Though Damian was gone, his presence lingered in every step she took, every life she touched. No longer the feared witch, she had become something far greater, a woman who had changed hearts and left an indelible mark on the city. The city wept and remembered. Luna mourned and rose, and in that bittersweet truth, the story of the witch who never was, and the man who believed in her, came to its unforgettable, tragic end.